Melissa Griffin is from the Alzheimer's Association. She was with us once before to talk about how to talk about the diagnosis with family members and friends. And today she's going to really help us talk about how we maintain dignity. What is it Teepa Snow says? It is not the disease that takes away dignity for persons living with dementia. It's our response and reaction to them. That's not an exact quote, but that's close. So, thank you.
You just gave my presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much. How many of you, this is your first time here to one of the dementia presentations here at the church? Oh, great. Good. Glad to have you here. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. Thanks. So my name's Melissa, and I work at the Alzheimer's Association here just in Fort Worth, about 3 minutes away from here. And I work as the Education Outreach Coordinator, so part of what I do is going out and giving presentations like this. But another piece of what I do is working with families in a one-on-one setting to help them develop plans of care, to help them cope with what they're going through, and to help them strategize with problems that they may be having at home or in the communities that their loved ones live. But before I came here, I actually worked in memory care assisted living for about 5.5 years, and I was the fun girl. I was the activity director. All right, how many activity directors? Got one here? All right, good. I know what that's like, so bless you. And then before that, I actually have been a family caregiver since I was about 14 years old. So I like to say this in the beginning. I lost both my grandmothers to Alzheimer's disease, and I talk about one of them a lot in just about every presentation that I do. And we called her Nona because she was our little Italian grandmother. And she started it all for me and my interest in this. So I've pretty much grown up with this disease. And this presentation right here, Maintaining Dignity, we didn't know this stuff 10 years ago in my family. And this is not something that we did very well in my family. And I will disclose that to all of you today. We missed the opportunity to really give Nona as much dignity as she deserved because we just didn't understand what we should be doing and how to do it. So all this comes from what we wish we woulda, coulda, shoulda. But so here it is for you today. As we go, I may ask a couple questions. I like a lot of engagement, but I will do my best to save some time at the end for questions. And I don't have any specific handout for this program, but if you are interested in the slides, I would gladly send them to you via email, or if that doesn't work out, I'd be glad to put a copy in the mail. If you'll visit with my friend Kathy at the table or myself after the program, and we'll capture your contact information, all right? So let's talk about what we want to accomplish today. One, it's all about dignity. So we're going to define it and talk about what I mean by that and get a sense of we're all on the same page as to what we mean. We're going to talk about stigma that exists in our society and how it contributes to compromising dignity for people with Alzheimer's. We'll talk about challenges that we face in maintaining dignity across the stages. So we will specifically look at early stage, middle stage, and late stage, also known as mild, moderate, or severe stages of Alzheimer's disease. And then not just will I tell you the challenges, but we'll help problem solve and talk about the things we can do to overcome those challenges and promote dignity for our loved ones. And lastly, we're going to talk about the role of the care partner. So how many in here are you a care partner now, or have you been in the past for someone with this disease? Okay. And how many of you have a friend that's really going through this, and you might be here to support your friends? God bless you for helping your friends, because all those care partners that raise their hand, they need friends like you. So thank you for being here. And I do have a little survey on each table, so you'll see the objectives listed in there. So at the end, if you have time, let me know if I've helped accomplish those objectives today. All right, so first of all, I want to ask you all to shout out a couple things that come to your mind when I say, what is dignity? And feel free to shout it out. Respect. I heard 2. All right. Maintaining personhood. I love that. Definitely. Anyone else? Courtesy. Okay. I like that. Well-behaved. Wait, who should be the well-behaved one? Yes. We could talk more about that. All right, so here are some words. Some of what you said is on there. I think I need to change that little graphic because I've heard some better ones. So when I looked this up, Webster said that dignity is the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect. And these are some of the words that I thought of. Purpose, personhood, maintaining personhood, very important, and we will talk about that. Value, honor, respect. I love that. Pride, it's the pride we feel in ourselves when we receive dignity, right? Or the pride someone feels when we are giving them dignity that they deserve. Does everyone agree with the definition we're coming up with? All right, good, thank you. So, how is it lost on this journey of Alzheimer's or any type of dementia? And we'll look at 3 different ways that it can be lost. So this is more of a guideline, an outline of the rest of the presentation. But these 3 factors, loss of sense of self, personhood, I'm coming back to that, loss of that personhood and your understanding of yourself, increased dependency. So our loved ones with this disease rely on us more and more as time goes on, and that compromises their dignity. And just the simple difficulty of making everyday choices, just deciding which shirt to wear. Do you want the chicken or the beef, tea or water? Things like that become more difficult can really compromise someone's dignity. And so these are all factors of the condition, of the progress of Alzheimer's disease or whichever type of dementia it is. So we will talk about ways to overcome these challenges. The second, and Linda touched on this with her TIPA quote, these are the results of us as the care partner. So these could be the interactions that we have every day that may affect the dignity that we give our loved one. It could be when a care partner is so task-focused that they only are literally focused on making sure that shower is finished or that food is cooked rather than the person and their experience of going through that task. We'll talk about patience and word choice. So the words that we use every day with the person that we love. We'll talk more about that. And then lastly, stigma. And this is a result of society. We are in a very different place in 2018 than we were in 2008, in 1998, in 1988, and further and further. When we were starting this with my Nona, it was the early 2000s. And I'm proud to say we're in a much better place society-wise today than we were back then. So I'm actually going to go backwards from here, and we're going to talk about stigma first. And I am going to show some pictures that may be a little bit hard to see, and they are not the vision that every person has when they think of Alzheimer's. But what I did was simply Google person with Alzheimer's, Alzheimer's symptoms, dementia, senior with Alzheimer's, and these were the pictures that came up. And the words that I've associated with them are words that I've heard through my time working with families and working with caregivers in how they describe their loved ones. So the image I'm attempting to portray is what some of society visualizes, but not all of society. So a little bit cut off, but these are some pictures that I saw when I Googled it, and some statements I've heard some care partners say is that my loved one is already gone. I know that word's a little cut off there, but already gone and they can't do anything anymore. An image of a woman who's just confused. And we know that's a symptom, but that's one of the first pictures that pops up on Google. Can't make decisions anymore, right? We think our loved ones can't make any decisions, and so sometimes we might be robbing them of their ability to really contribute to something. Incompetent, right? Visualizing an older person in a wheelchair in a nursing home, someone who's scared, and crazy and mean. Those are hard images to see, and we know that behavioral challenges can be a part of this journey, but those are some of the images. So forgive me if you're sitting with a heavy heart to see that right now, but I will lift you back up, okay? Believe in me, I will do that. But I thought that this was very interesting before I created this program, just looking at when I Googled, literally in Google Images, looked up these images, and this is what we're seeing. So I attribute that to people who may not have any connection to this disease, maybe having these images of someone with Alzheimer's or dementia. So let's talk about some history. So Alzheimer's was discovered in 1906, and it was given a name in 1910 by a Dr. Alzheimer's. But momentum really didn't build until 70 years later, in the 80s. And that's when we really started seeing some action in our society. People years ago were just thought of as senile. Like it's just what happened when you got older. And then they may have been placed in mental institutions or just very sterile nursing homes. How many were in nursing homes or saw some institutions in the 70s and 80s and 90s? Anyone? Can you validate that they looked a little different back then? And do they look better now? Those of you that work in memory care communities and long-term care settings, I know you guys have beautiful, comforting environments. So this is more of a past that I'm talking about. And we're still raising awareness every day and changing perspectives through First United Methodist, right? We've got Dementia Friendly Fort Worth, which is an incredible initiative to just spread awareness throughout all sectors of our community, whether it's business, restaurants, healthcare, financial institutions. The Alzheimer's Association sends lobbyists to their state and federal representatives every year to push for more funding, to push for policy change, to push for more education for doctors and for caregivers. So we've come a long way, and so I want to contrast this with with other positives in just a moment. But at the Alzheimer's Association, we have a national early stage advisory council. So we are very big in supporting the folks that are living in the early stages of this disease and utilizing their perspectives in how we build training programs and how we teach the public and how we continue to support families. We are always using the feedback from the people that are actually living with this disease. So here are some comments I found from folks that serve on our early stage advisory council. So these are people living with the disease and what their perception has been of the public's perception. So just a few quotes. When people say dementia or Alzheimer's, everyone thinks that you're going to die. The general public's attitude towards Alzheimer's in some instances is not very nice. In fact, Excuse my expression, but I'd have to say it sucks. But we does because we let it, right? It's up to us to change this. I love that part. There is a stigma that goes along with this disease. Many people are worried about sharing the fact openly that they have this disease because of the negative stigma. I heard someone whisper the other day, "My father has Alzheimer's." And I just wanted to say, give him a big hug, and I'm sorry, I'm not reading that correctly. My father has Alzheimer's. I just gave him a big hug and said, you don't have to whisper, shout it loud. There's no reason to keep it hidden, right? It is out of our control, our loved ones' control, if they have developed this condition. There's no reason to keep it hidden. And I definitely take this personally because of a moment I had with my Nona when I was just maybe 13 or 14, and she sat me down on her bed, and she had her closet door open, and on the inside of the closet door she had all these Post-it notes of things that she was trying to remember, and she just couldn't remember. Her grandkids' birthdays, her kids' names, upcoming holidays, and all sorts of things. And she sat me down, and she kind of resembled that confused lady that we saw in one of the earlier slides. And she said, "Missy, I know I'm getting sick, but I don't want you to tell your grandfather. I don't want him to know." Okay, she was ashamed of feeling the way she was feeling, of not being able to keep track of her grandkids and her kids and their birthdays. And she stopped going to her social engagements and spending time with her friends who have been her friends since high school. And when I think about it in hindsight, I wish we were of better support at that time, but there's no reason anymore to be like that. So I love the end of this. You don't have to whisper it. You can shout it loud. So, moving beyond stereotypes, right? Something that's helped us society-wise is some public figures that have experienced it. So Rosa Parks, she died with Alzheimer's disease. Robin Williams, many of us know his story, and it involved Lewy body dementia. Karen McCarthy was a U.S. representative that died at 63 years old with Alzheimer's. She was in Missouri. Pat Summitt, the Tennessee Lady Vols basketball coach, had to quit at 59 years old due to her Alzheimer's and passed away at 64. And some other faces. And these people are smart, they're talented, they're funny, they're strong, they're all these great things. And this is where I actually invite a few of you, if you would, raise your hand and tell me, when you think of your loved one, when you think of your friend that has some sort of dementia, what is the best quality that comes to your mind for that person? Smart. Your loved one is smart. Thank you. Sweet and kind. Okay. Sense of humor. All right. Funny, sweet and kind, smart. Still active and strong. Still active and strong, right? It has not stopped. Caring. Thank you. He was caring for his family. Honoring. There's that sense of humor she was talking about, right? Any others you want to share? Your loved one? Your residents that you care for? Positive. Even after diagnosis? Even very positive. All right, I love it. Looking to the future with positive thoughts, even after a diagnosis. So this is the point where I hope that I've maybe lifted you back up a little bit after those images, but I wanted to share that because we are members of this community, and it is part of our role to help change, whether it's just coming to this program or being more open with your friend and your church family and your family about what it is that you're experiencing, because I guarantee you that friend that may not know about this disease now will know about it someday in some way, shape, or form. So we'll talk more about that again, but I just wanted to share those positive things. I like to add that in there because there is a lot of joy. These are our smart family members, our funny family members, our sweet and kind mothers, right? Loyal, family, positive, all these great qualities. And they still carry them, still active, still strong. So now we'll talk about the challenges that happen during early stages and middle stages and late stages. And I will start by each stage. So some challenges that happen in the early stages. Misinterpreting what other people say. That can happen very easily because language becomes a big challenge with most types of dementia. And so having trouble understanding what someone's saying can lead to maybe a little anger or lead to just confusion because maybe you've asked your loved one to do something and they didn't do it because it's possible he or she just didn't quite understand you. Difficulty solving simple problems and being able to navigate just everyday occurrences and following complicated tasks. Oh, there you go. I wasn't done. I was thinking I was clicking this on each bullet point. Trouble name and word finding, right? So calling objects maybe by their wrong name, saying, referring to a watch as a hand clock, or asking you to hand me, I'm thirsty, can you hand me that plastic clear thing so I can, and I just can't come up with the word water. I just want my water, so I'm talking around the object. Misplacing objects. And how many of us all misplace objects from time to time? You ever missing your glasses, come to find out they're on top of your head, right? Lock your keys in the car, thank God for AAA. So misplacing objects, yes, but more so losing the ability to retrace your steps and find them can definitely become a heavy occurrence for folks with many types of dementia. And forgetting recently learned information. So we know that the part of their brain that is in charge of short-term memory is becoming disrupted very early on in Alzheimer's disease and most types of dementia, not each type, but being able to learn new information will eventually become far too difficult. And difficulty making decisions, everyday decisions, right? Which shirt to wear, what type of food to eat, whether to watch baseball or basketball tonight. So here are the things. Did anyone still want to take notes on that? Sorry. Okay. All right. So here are some things that we can do to help with these challenges, because these are challenges that are a result of the condition again. And so there are things that we can do as care partners to help with that. Maybe we can't slow down the progress of their disease, but the way we respond and the things that we do can help them with this. So here's the beauty that you have when you are still in the early stages of this journey with your loved one, is that your loved one has the opportunity to really participate in decisions that he or she may want. So here's an interesting situation I had, and I'm so grateful for it. When I was teaching a program back in April, I was teaching a class on effective communication strategies for folks with Alzheimer's. And little did most of us know in the audience, we had a person that was just newly diagnosed. Just a few weeks ago, she was diagnosed. And bless her, she raised her hand and she said, one of the things that bothers me the most about my son, who is her care partner, is that I'm having trouble saying what I want to say, but I know what I want to say, and it's taking me longer than usual to finish my sentence or complete my thought. And instead of my son giving me the opportunity to get the words out, he jumps in and he completes my sentence for me. And it bothers me. I don't want him to do it. So my advice was to have an honest conversation with him about that. But I was so grateful because it really brought home something I probably did a million times to my Nona, and even to the residents that I cared for when I was working in memory care assisted living. Because when we see someone we love struggle to finish a sentence or a thought, we may think we're doing them a favor because we probably already know the ending of the sentence. So we think we're doing them a favor when we finish the sentence for them. But that act alone may strip someone of the dignity to let them finish their own sentence. Because at some point in this journey, he or she may not be able to say any sentences or many sentences at all. And so while you've got the opportunity to allow them to finish their thoughts, you could be giving them the dignity to make their own decisions and to do that. With this said, not everyone may want to finish their own sentences. If you've been married to this person for 55 years, you may have been finishing each other's sentences for a long time, for decades. And so I would encourage, if this is a situation you might be a part of, to ask your loved one, sweetie, I know that it's getting harder for you to finish your sentences and your thoughts, and I want you to tell me, do you want me to help you finish this thought, complete this sentence, or do you want me to give you time to finish it? And you have the opportunity to give them the choice, so ask them. Does that resonate with some people? That's true. And that's what makes today so important. And that's why we must continually live in this moment, because if we can have a positive moment from that, then it's better than someone becoming upset because you have finished the sentence and they didn't want that. But you're right, it could be changing. And maybe that person, you could have the conversation again tomorrow, and she may say, no, I don't want you to finish my sentences. So you do have to consider this. It's not a one and done. It's not a one conversation for the rest of this journey. So thank you for sharing that. So I think that I just stated this. Include the person in making decisions, right? So it could be, maybe for Nona, she really lost the ability to really cook a meal fairly early on because there's so many steps to it. One, you have to have the initiation to figure out what it is you're cooking. Do you have the ingredients? How many people are you cooking for? Do you need to go to the store? If you need to go to the store, do you remember what you need to get? Do you know how to get back home from the store? And then when you get back home, do you remember what the heck you were doing in the first place? And how many people you were cooking for and what you were cooking? And do you have the ingredients? And do I need to go to the store? And it can be a cycle, right? But as a care partner, you can remove some of those challenges and I could have still given Nona the opportunity to cook. If I just simply said, Nona, are we making spaghetti with meat sauce, or are we making chicken tenders for dinner today? And I could have then helped take her to the store and helped her pick out the ingredients and gotten back home. And I could have been more of a coach rather than just strip this activity completely from her, something that was so much joy from her, she probably could have enjoyed longer if we sat in this presentation 14 years ago. So I just like to share that because you have the opportunity to be more of a coach, to be the reason why I say care partner and not caregiver, because there can be less giving and more partnering with, right? So it could be as simple as dinner, and it could be as simple as what activities you're going to do on Saturday. And if it's stressful on Wednesday for your loved one to think about Saturday, then maybe it's just a conversation you have on Saturday morning, and giving simple choices. Are you going to go walk the dog? Are you going to go to your grandkids' soccer game? Or are you going to go see a matinee? So giving choices versus, well, honey, it's Saturday. What do you want to do today? That may be a very overwhelming question. And then modifying the challenging tasks rather than taking them away. So I gave the example of cooking, but I want to give another example because very simple household tasks are actually quite not complex, but they involve a lot of steps. So think about laundry. All right, I want you to envision that when you get home today, you are doing laundry. Now you all are saying, well, I don't want to go home. I want to stay here all day. You have to go get your laundry, right? If it's even gathered together in one place, if you have kids at home that might be strewn all over the floor, right? Or maybe not even kids. It could be anyone at home. So the point is, you have to gather the laundry. You have to go to the washing machine. You have to remember where the washing machine is. And whether you put the clothes in first or put the laundry detergent in first, whatever your method is, you have to do both, right? Put the laundry in, put the detergent in, figure out what size of a load it is. Do you want hot or cold or warm water? Do you need the gentle cycle or the permanent press or just a regular? Is it a heavy load? Are you doing towels? If you have one of those fancy washing machines, I don't, but if you do, you probably have about 20 things to decide on that one washing machine. And then by the time the load is finished, you have to remember you did it in the first place and then put it in the dryer and kind of do a lot of these steps all over again. So my point in all that is it's not as simple as doing laundry. And so if it's Nona who should be doing laundry, it was, one of her regular chores that she did in the home. Maybe I'm not saying, Nona, can you do laundry? Maybe I'm coaching her, taking her side by side. Nona, let's go to the closet and gather the hamper. All right, can you put the clothes in there and I'll go to the cabinet and I'll get the detergent, and we're working together. So I'm not stripping her of the purpose of still being able to complete these household tasks. And some of you are saying, I can't wait for the day I don't have to do laundry again. But for someone with this disease who's going to be losing more and more ability to do these simple things, it really is giving them dignity to allow these simple chores back in their life. Or keeping it in their life, not suggesting that it's been taken away. But we took it away. And if we wanted Nona to do something so simple and she couldn't do it right, we got mad because we didn't know better, because we just didn't know better. And so that doesn't have to be the case. And in these early stages, you can optimize your loved one's well-being through physical exercise, keeping them physically well, keeping them mentally engaged, and keeping them socially engaged. Those are 3 very important factors to living well in these early stages. So here's something I heard when I first had my true dementia care training, when I started working at a memory care community 6 years ago, almost to the date, actually. So if the individual is struggling to remember recently learned information and tends to repeat things often, which is probably most of our loved ones, refrain from asking him or her to remember. And I heard this very harsh comparison metaphor, and I'm going to say it here. If you knew someone who is paraplegic, would you ask him or her to walk? Probably not. He or she simply cannot do it. So the suggestion there is not to ask someone with some form of memory loss to remember, because he or she probably simply cannot remember. In these early stages, there will be instances of short-term memory, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't remember that. I can't believe she remembered that we had pancakes for breakfast. But quizzing that person on, Nona, what did we have for breakfast this morning? It does no one any good, because all you're wanting to see probably is you're maybe hoping for something that is likely not to come. And in that moment, Nona, and I'm speaking from experience, will then feel very stressed, feel very paranoid, feel very anxious that this is getting worse and worse by the day. Nothing good can really come from using the phrase, do you remember? Yes, ma'am.
So that makes me wonder, I'm trying to do something helpful,
Mm-hmm.
together like a digital photo album for my mom,
Mm-hmm.
and putting names and faces and things like that. Look at would that be more?
You have a microphone coming. So I'll just repeat that. She's saying
Oh.
she's working to put some digital albums together for her mom, assuming pictures from years past and things like that. So I'm glad I wanted to emphasize this afterwards too. Folks with dementia, most types of dementia, have really great long-term memory. And so using pictures and seeing faces of babies and kids and life, years ago are great. And maybe it's okay to say, remember, if it's a picture from years ago, their parents or things like that. But my encouragement is to find a solution or an alternative to saying, do you remember? So rather than asking it as a question, phrasing it as a statement. Look, Mom, there's my son, and he just had his baby. Right? Look, Mom, there's a picture of you and Dad on your wedding day. So rather than phrasing it as a question, stating it like a matter of fact. So thank you for bringing that up, because I may have forgotten to make that point. To turn it around and do less quizzing and more just conversation. When I would go see my Nona, instead of saying, do you remember me, Nona? I'm your favorite granddaughter, I could have or should have said, hey, Nona, it's me, it's Missy. Guess what? My birthday's tomorrow. Just something so simple to create a moment of joy, quite simply, rather than do you remember? Because in that moment, it's just going to create tension. And she might. I don't want to say that she won't be able to say my name, but why find out? Because you can just create that moment of joy and give the answer without the question. Does anyone have any comments, questions on early stage challenges? Got one over? Well, yeah, we'll go here and then we'll go there.
I think
Thank you.
Okay.
It's hard to hear that.
okay. I think Bob and I lived a whole year without realizing that he had dementia.
Okay.
And when do you discover? I mean, I still don't understand how the doctor or whatever, who says you have dementia?
Okay, so, and some of you did not hear, so I'm going to restate the question. She's saying that she believes she lived a whole year with her husband before realizing that he had dementia. And how does a doctor determine? Or, yeah. She told, well, there's going to be some testing involved. There should be testing involved. Finding a new doctor may help. No. Okay. 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 So forgive my last statement. He was in an emergency type set because he fell, for those of you who didn't hear, skinned his arm. I'm assuming it was an emergency room type setting and not a primary care physician, or it was an emergency setting. And so that doctor told you that he has, yeah. I can't tell you what that doctor did to determine it. I honestly am not sure. When do you realize? When you start noticing that things aren't right with memory, that's a whole nother program I could teach here. But when you start noticing that things are different for this person, cognitively, memory loss, maybe behavioral challenges, some of those first signs will be different for different people. But if you notice a change, cognitive and emotional and memory, the best thing you can do is go to the doctor and get an assessment.
But I think nowadays it's more out there that you,
Correct.
whereas 30 years ago.
Correct. That is progress we've made years ago, and it was the same with Nona. We chalked it up. Oh, it's anxiety. Oh, she's bored. She's retired. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. And we didn't take it seriously for years. So you're very right. Thank you for sharing that. And did we have a question back there? Okay.
And so at least a year and a half ago, I recognized that I should stop asking her the whole thing about remember. And she said something quite poignant to me one time when I asked her what she'd done over the weekend. She looked at me and she said, every day is a blank slate. And I was like, ooh.
That hit you.
So that hurts.
Yes.
But my question to you is, what sort of words should I say to, she's in hospice, and the hospice nurse comes out. We have had multiple nurses, and they start in on all these questions, which just raises her anxiety, and I want to holler at them, and I know I shouldn't. So do you have some good words that I can say to the professionals that are coming out and quizzing her?
Great question. So if you missed the beginning or didn't hear any of that, how many have taken your loved one to the ER and just wanted to say some choice words to the staff working with your loved one? So similar, what can you do to say to the professionals who are working with your loved one who are not saying it right? And my suggestion would be to have an open and honest conversation with those folks and tell them what works for you. So when you are with your mom and you are helping your mom transfer from the bed to the chair, or helping your mom get to the restroom, or helping your mom, eat food, what words work for you, what solicits a positive reaction, and share it in a non-confrontational way, but just I've noticed some changes with my mom, with her dementia over these last few years, and I just want to let you know what's worked for me. And you can even say a little fib. The other day I said this to her and it didn't go over well, and I ask you as her daughter to maybe avoid saying those things or phrasing these statements in that way. I mean, when you're talking about hospice or home health or doctors or nurses or whomever, you're hiring those folks in one way or another, and so you have the right to have an open and honest and loving conversation. But my point is that I would tell them what works for you. Okay. Yes, sir.
What's hard for me in that situation is the concept of maintaining dignity. Mm-hmm. Now, when I'm in the doctor's office with my wife, even professionals who know that she has a diagnosis of dementia, and they're asking her questions, and she's responding to the questions, and I know that she gave a bad answer.
Yes.
Have you had trouble remembering things? No. Have you lost something? On and on and on. It's how do I get the correct information to the doctors without making her feel like I'm arguing with her, or, it's just it's an uncomfortable situation because I love her very much and I want to maintain her dignity, but I want to make sure that the correct information gets where it needs to be.
Right, very important. And because this is a medical situation, it is imperative that that doctor or that healthcare professional gets the accurate information. So I have two parts to this answer. So one, I want to go back to whether or not that is still a conversation you would be able to have with your wife. Could you still have a conversation that goes like, you know, when we're at the doctor, I notice that some of your comments don't seem as accurate from my perspective. You may not be able to have this conversation, but consider whether or not you can. And say, if I notice that the reports you're giving don't seem accurate to my perspective and my experience, what would you like me to do? Would you like me to tell the doctor in front of you, or would you like me to step outside with the doctor either quickly, after the appointment, before the appointment? Is it a phone call you can have before the appointment to give that warning? And so that would be my suggestion. So one, can you still have an honest conversation with her about this? And you may not. And so if you cannot, is it something you can call the doctor about probably before the appointment and granted, you probably won't be talking to the doctor. You'll be talking to an assistant or a nurse practitioner and let them know. And even you could write down signs and symptoms that you're noticing. My wife is having trouble remembering recently learned information. My wife is having trouble solving simple problems. It could be something you write down and give, or it could be something you call and have a separate conversation with. Or if there's a way you could tactfully meet with the doctor, you know, without your wife. That may be tricky. I mean, it might be as much as she's running to the restroom and you're saying, Doc, everything she's telling you is not right. But whether or not you'd have that opportunity. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard. That's hard. It is very hard. But it is important for that doctor to get that information. But I agree that just coming right out and interrupting her may not be the best route to her dignity unless you're able to ask her if that's something she would like.
Before every office visit, my
Yes.
husband wrote a letter to be given to the doctor and asked them to let the doctor read that letter before we went into the office for the exam. So the doctor had some background.
Great. That is very proactive. Thank you for sharing that.
With my dad, when I'm in there with the doctor and the doctor's asking things and they're just, the answers are not right, I have noticed that often the doctor will look at me and I can just go, just a little head shake, and they know that the answer's not accurate. And often that's all they need to know. And they're never, they usually position themselves where that's very easy as a family member to do. Because I don't really want to interrupt him, but on the other hand, the importance of the medical information is really important. And I think sometimes they're asking to get the information, but other times they're asking to get the patient's perspective. The best questionnaire that I've seen recently for a doctor's visit was to be definitely filled out by him. Do you have memory problems? No. Does your family think you have memory problems? He looks at me, I said, yes. And he's, oh, really? Which is one of my dad's favorites. But anyway, so, hang in there.
I like that point too. So it depends on your relationship with the doctor, if you can communicate with a head nod. And thank you for pointing out that those questions could very well be a part of the assessment too.
My husband told me one morning that he had seen 26 women stealing clothes out of his closet. And I just made the comment, Jim, don't you think that was a dream? He got very angry at me. No, that was not a dream, and don't you tell me that. We had a home health nurse, and I asked her, what should I do in a situation? And she said, don't argue with him. Agree that you think that could happen, and just let him win. But you don't have to believe it, of course, you wouldn't. But I ran into that quite a bit with him.
Yes, very good example. You just pretty much gave exactly what I wanted to talk about in talking about the middle stages of Alzheimer's or a related type of dementia. So do not argue. Go with the flow. Enter their reality. Join their journey, whatever phrase you want to say. But the point is not to argue. Very well. It's hard. I mean, it's natural. It's natural. When we hear something's wrong, we want to fix it. Yes, very wrong. Yes, another question.
Very early on, I noticed something different about my husband. I went with him for the first time in 50 years of marriage to his doctor, and the doctor asked him a question and said, he's all right, and brushed it off. And I just thought, oh, I made a big mistake here. But I continued to notice those things, and so what I'm telling you right now is I shared it with a lifelong friend who happens to be in this church, and she connected me not only with this program, but she was able to tell me about the University of North Texas Health Science Center where I could take him to have him be tested. And I was really leery about even mentioning it to him because I thought he's probably not going to go over that well. Much to my surprise, he was very interested in going, and I think that alone helped us get on the journey to do the things that we need to do to be positive as this program has promoted, and to, if nothing else, delay the inevitable so that we can have a good quality of life.
Yes.
And so I think sharing it with someone, not being afraid to let your friends know that there's an issue, who might be able to connect you with some place like the University of North Texas Health Science Center right down the street here in Fort Worth. It has been invaluable to me.
Good. Thank you. Amen. Yes, sharing it with someone because you never know what you're going to get out of it. Thank you. Had another one?
My question is, what do you do if someone says something inappropriate and you're standing there to someone else or to me?
So that's a great question. Saying something inappropriate, what do you do? So actually, I would take probably a more similar approach to what I talked about with the doctor. So one, does this person that you're in front of know about the condition of the person that is saying the inappropriate remark? And if not, can that person know either before you're with them or if it's out in public? Can you hold up the little card for me? We have these little cards that are very helpful, and I have a bunch of them on the table. Kathy has a bunch of them, and they're very discreet. We call them a companion card, and so what they say is say, for in this example, you're at the store, and the inappropriate remark is given to a cashier, and so no, you can't walk into the store and say, by the way, everyone, my loved one may say something inappropriate. But what you could do is in that line discreetly hand this cashier this card, and all it says is my loved one has dementia, and it gives a little definition of what that means. And so that may be one way to discreetly say, I'm sorry, but he really can't help what he's saying. Because the point is that you're not going to get him or her to realize that what's been said is inappropriate. Unfortunately, that is an effect of the condition for this individual. Not for everyone, but for some it's a symptom that we really can't change. And so the only thing we can change is our reaction and possibly the reaction of others around. And the best way to do that is with education, letting that person know, hey, I'm sorry my husband or my dad or my sister said this, but unfortunately he or she just can't help it, and that's where we are. We can't control everyone's reaction, but I encourage you to grab some of these cards afterwards. I've heard great things about people using them in restaurants, in doctors' offices, in stores, and things like that. But if you were to approach this comment with your loved one, my instinct is that it may not go over well, and it may turn into an argument that just is going to create more havoc. That's my instinct, and that's my experience. That's not to say you wouldn't have okay and in agreement, but in my experience, it probably wouldn't go over well. Thank you. All right, well, I still have to talk about middle stages and late stages, so let me get through these pretty quickly, but there's going to be a lot of overlap now from some of the questions we ask. So here are some of the challenges. One, an increased need for physical assistance. So now physical abilities may be changing, walking, transferring from chairs to beds, things like that. Limited, so vocabulary and verbal communication is going to be getting more decreased during this time. Wandering and becoming lost becomes a bigger challenge at this point. And personality changes, so we may see some of those inappropriate remarks. We may see some behavioral agitation, verbal aggression, increased anxiety, those things. And then we're going to go back to that personhood that Mr. Olson mentioned in the beginning when I asked about dignity. So loss of sense of self. So let's talk about some ways to maintain dignity. Bathing can be an incredible journey for some folks at this point. Not for everyone, but for some it can become an incredible task filled with difficulty. And quite honestly, we could do a whole 90 minutes on bathing. So I will just very simply summarize it. I did put some handouts on the tables, but I did not have enough. If you want handouts afterwards, again, visit with myself or Miss Kathy, and we'll get your information and send it to you. And if this is something that is a current struggle, the Alzheimer's Association would love to help problem solve with you. We have our 24-hour helpline available. You can call and literally talk to someone about the challenges that you're having and come up with possibly some solutions. So I'm saying that to say we're not going to cover everything you need to hear if this is something you're struggling with now, but here are some quick tips. So one, know the person's ability. If you are just saying, Dad, go take a shower, well, can Dad really complete that task with that one simple statement anymore? Or do you need to do a lot more hands-on prep? Maybe he's able to wash himself, but he can't get the soap on the cloth or the loofah anymore. So be aware of what they can and cannot do, and be aware of changes as well, because the shower can be a dangerous place too. It can be slippery. Your loved one may no longer be able to stand up to take that shower. It may be time for a shower chair. It may be time to get grab bars installed in that shower. So be aware of changes. Prepare the bathroom in advance. I cannot say this enough as a former caregiver and activity director who will help any caregiver on the floor give a shower at any time. I cannot tell you how important preparing that bathroom in advance is, because you may be getting a good moment, and that good moment may last 30 seconds for that whole day. And in that 30 seconds, if you don't have the towels you need, if you don't have the soap you need, if you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle in place, you have lost your opportunity to successfully have a nice and clean and warm shower. So prepare the bathroom in advance. Focus on the person. As caregivers, I'm saying caregivers now, we get task focus. As care partners, we are focused on the person and not the task. If you have an appointment at 9:30, please do not try to get your loved one in the shower at 8:30. If your loved one does not want to get up before 8 o'clock, then please don't make that appointment for 9:30, because it's just not enough time. And what will happen will become a very rushed scenario that will stress your loved one out, that will stress you out, or will stress you out and stress your loved one out. So prepare with enough time. And to focus on the person. And simplify the process. Maybe we don't need to do the face wash and the shampoo and the conditioner and the body wash anymore. If the shower is such a nightmare for your mom, maybe there's so many products out there. Maybe there's something simple. Maybe it's a 2-in-1, and maybe it's one body wash, and maybe we're forgetting that fancy Neutrogena or Mary Kay face cleanser, because at this point, is it more important than having a successful moment? So my point in that is to simplify. If this is such a difficult task, simplify with whatever you can. Walk down the hygiene aisles at the grocery store. There's a million products, and I guarantee a lot of them will help simplify. Consider bathing alternatives, meaning if it's so difficult, if everything you're trying is just not working, well, can we wash the top part today and hopefully wash the bottom part tomorrow? Can we wash just one limb today and one limb tomorrow? Can we just, instead of getting in the shower, just take a warm face cloth and help, do what's important? So consider that the idea of a bath may not be a full-out hot shower. It may be something different. And for some folks, if your loved ones grew up during the Great Depression, they may not have taken showers. They may have taken bucket baths or used bathtubs. And so if they've lost their short-term memory and are reverting back to longer memories from ago, we may need to do our best to try to replicate what they did from years ago if that's the reality they're living in. Okay. Yes, so she said someone came in to help give showers, and that is an option, especially if someone's on hospice services or home health services, or you've hired a private caregiver. Sometimes hiring or having that service can help as well. Thank you for that. And then be sensitive to the after bath care needs as well. I know me, if I don't get lotion on right away, I feel itchy, I feel uncomfortable. So be sensitive to what your loved one's needs are. If I'm going to use that Mary Kay cleanser, I have got to use the Mary Kay moisturizer because it's just not going to feel good. So be sensitive to what your loved one's needs are there. And then keep the bathroom safe. So the shower, little tips here, the shower or the bath mat only needs to be on the floor when the shower is occurring and when cleanup is occurring. It does not need to stay on the floor. It is a fall hazard. Be aware of other clutter in the bathroom. Do you need grab bars? Do you need shower chairs? If you do, call us. We can help you figure out how to get those things installed for free, by the way. So those are just some tips. And I wish we had more time to talk about that. But again, give us a call if it's a struggle you're having. So giving choices but limiting them. We talked about that earlier with early stages, but here in the middle stages, this will become even harder. So something I tried to remember when I was getting residents up in the morning or helping them get dressed for bed at night is that I would not pick out their whole outfit for them. Maybe they couldn't answer much, but they probably could tell me, do they want the blue shirt or the pink shirt? Something simple like that. Do you want the sandals or the tennis shoes today? Simple choices like that. And be aware to the nonverbal behavior because verbal communication is becoming more and more limited. So be aware if they are showing signs of anxiety, if they are pacing back and forth and don't want to sit still, if when you get them to sit down, if they spring back up, be aware as to what could be causing that. Is there a loud noise going on? Are they bored? Are they hungry? Have they had an accident and do they need to be changed? There's all sorts of things. So be aware of the nonverbal behavior. And if you're not quite sure or don't quite know what to make of the nonverbal behavior, talk about it with someone, give us a call. If you're in a community, talk to the staff at the long-term care community that your loved one's with and try to figure it out with someone. What could this behavior mean? Limit environmental distractions. Has anyone done the Dementia Live experience or a virtual dementia tour before? All right, a few people. Well, you all should go this Saturday to the Healthy Lives Matter educational seminar. There are some flyers on your tables, but you'll have the opportunity to experience, it's called Dementia Live, and it's a simulated experience of what it would be like to have dementia. In very short, your experience includes a lot of background noise, visual challenges, physical challenges, such as taping fingers together or wearing gloves that make it hard to do finite tasks, or putting inserts into your shoes to make it kind of hurt to walk. So that's part of a modified summary of the experience. But the point is that people with dementia become very sensitive to all these extra noises that are going on. And so if I were someone with dementia right now and I were trying to have a conversation with you, I might very well be distracted by some background noise I'm hearing over there, because it's taking my focus away. So I would become more sensitive to things like that. So be aware of environmental distractions. Join your loved one's reality, to your point, not earlier, not arguing, going where they are in their journey. If you are home with your loved one, you are literally in your loved one's home, and she says, I want to go home, the correct response, I hate to tell you, is not, well, we are home. What do you mean you want to go home? We're already there. Your response might better be suited for, all right, Mom, I would love to take you home. How about we get our bags packed first thing tomorrow morning and we will go there. It's getting too late now and I've got to pick the kids up. Or whatever it is, using what I refer to, what many of us refer to as therapeutic fibbing, to comfort your loved one in her reality, while solving her need a little bit. So if she's wanting to go home, could it be that she's wanting to feel loved, or she's wanting to feel some comfort she may not be feeling right now? And so maybe after you've said, well, you know what, good idea, let's pack our bags first thing in the morning and go. And then maybe after that, you might sit and look at pictures of what your mom's childhood home was, or talk about memories from long ago. Maybe not saying, do you remember your home, but Mom, tell me about your home. Tell me about your mom. What was your favorite meal she cooked? Things like that. So you're recognizing that there may be a need that is not met, and you're trying to find a way to meet it. And it's not always going to be perfect. You have to try things to know that they will or will not work. I could spend more time on that, but for the sake of time, I cannot. So keep verbal communication simple and use cues. So if you're wanting your mom to sit down and she just won't, well, maybe I would do this almost every day with my folks in the memory care community when it was time to eat dinner. Sometimes they didn't want to sit down, so I would pull up a chair next to them and say, all right, Betty, let's sit. And she would sit if she sees me sit, but my words in her mind don't make sense and aren't connecting with the task that I want her to do. But if she's seeing me sit, then she'll sit. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And ask yes or no questions. So that goes back to giving simple choices, one or the other, yes or no. Not what do you want to do today, but do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to listen to music? So total yes approach. This goes back to not arguing. So in the example of your loved one wanting to go home, instead of saying, no, we can't, is there a way we can turn it around to saying, yes, we can, and then redirecting and giving them something that will provide comfort. Yes, we can go home tomorrow. So rather than when your loved one says that 26 women were stealing from the closet, it sounds ludicrous, and it's our instinct to say, well, that can't be. There's no way 26 women fit inside this house. Providing some comfort oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Well, come out of the room. Let me check and make sure no one's left. And providing some comfort in that moment. What would give your loved one comfort? Probably just knowing that you're there and that you believe him and that you will take care of this circumstance will give comfort. And hopefully something afterwards will help redirect, whether it's sitting down with a bowl of ice cream or calling a fake number and making a fake police report. For example, one thing I always had in the communities I worked in was someone's phone number, whether it was an activity assistant or someone's home phone, because no one uses them anymore, programmed in my phone so they can literally hear the phone ringing, and there might even be some generic voicemail, and they can feel the need or get the need met of making that police report or calling their daughter who's at home to come pick them up. That was something that always worked very well in the memory care communities for me. And then keep home safe with discrete methods. So one quick example I have of that, and this would not work for everyone, but we had an issue in these middle stages with Nona. She wanted to leave the house, and she just couldn't do it. I mean, she wasn't safe outside the house unless one of us were with her, and we couldn't keep our eye on her 24 hours a day, and short Italian grandmother, so she couldn't see the top of the door, so this worked, but for a taller person, this may not be so discreet. But we had a little simple lock that stopped her from opening the door. And so she felt, she got some exercise from trying to open it, and we didn't stop her from going to the door, and we didn't say, no, don't do this. But this is one thing I think we did a little bit right, because she couldn't see that there was a lock. So that's why I say it is discreet, but for everyone it wouldn't work. Because if they saw the lock, then they could probably figure out how to open the lock. But Nona couldn't reach it, so it worked. And then sense of self. So back to this personhood, back to dignity. So our loved ones may be forgetting parts of who they are, the things they may be forgetting how funny they are. They may be forgetting how sweet and kind they are and what a loving grandmother or mother or all these things that they've done. And so it's up to us to remind them. So this is just something we can do every time we're with our loved one, is remind them of their best qualities. Nona, I loved when we baked cookies every year at Christmas. And maybe Nona's having trouble remembering it herself, but my simple fact of telling her that I loved it and it was something we did together may be a positive moment for her. What's that person's biggest accomplishments? Was it a degree? Was it raising a family? Was it a career? Reminding them of that, not asking them about it, but reminding them. I was so proud that day you graduated from graduate school and we got to call you doctor for the first time. I was so proud that day we had our first grandchild. Things like that. Reminding them who's important and what are their favorite pastimes, and is there a way you can still incorporate that in their life, whether it's a physical hobby or singing or coming to a scripture reading service here at the church. Maybe the Sunday morning sermons aren't a friendly environment anymore because of the deteriorating condition, but a service like that is incredible. So finding those things that they can still enjoy is just as important as the things we say and the way we react. And then, I'm pushing it here with time. So let's talk quickly about late stages, right? Folks with dementia in these later stages can't do a whole lot for themselves anymore, but there's a whole lot we can do for them with dignity. So verbal communication isn't going to be so prominent anymore. Assistance with eating and drinking and physical care, using the restroom, taking baths, mobility is highly impaired. So important things we can use is use simple and familiar phrases in songs. So even this is something I did a lot if I was helping a resident in the restroom, which is not the most pleasant experience for anyone. No one dreams of the day they need to have someone else take them to the bathroom. And so if I knew Miss Mary loved singing songs with me when we were doing activities, well, why can't I try to do that right now when we're in the restroom together? So while I'm doing something that could otherwise be embarrassing for her, she's not thinking about it because I'm singing "You Are My Sunshine" with her, and because I know that she likes it. So that may not work for everyone, but it works for some. So using those things that make them feel good. Focus on simple pleasures. So that means music, that means scent, that means touch, that means pets or comforting textures, whether it's a soft pillow or lap blanket, things like that. Aromatherapy, food. If I get to this point, just give me a lot of chocolate fudge brownies and ice cream and mashed potatoes and comforting food that I like and pleasant smells and pets, not yippy dogs, but, pets that really are relaxed with me. Those simple things. Body language and the five senses to connect. Using a respectful voice. So what I mean by this, in a term I learned years ago, it's called elder speak. So meaning that sometimes we talk to our elders like they're our grandchildren and, "Oh, you look so cute, that's so pretty, I love the way you did this." Or talk to them, I'm not giving a good example because I don't spend a ton of time around kids, but talking to them like a child. Still, in these late stages of the disease, when they aren't understanding many words, it's still up to us to speak to them as an adult because they are an adult. And they may very well be our elders, which is even more of a reason. So continue to use that respectful voice and do respectful things. In a quick example, as an activity director, one thing I found is that a lot of my folks loved to color. But that does not mean that I'm going to go get a Dora the Explorer or a Strawberry Shortcake or a Lisa Frank coloring book. But is there something, and I used to use Google Images all the time, to print off something that maybe meant something and is more adult-like. And so it may not be those intricate, they have those adult coloring books, which can be very complicated. But for my resident who used to pick apples every fall, maybe it's a simple bucket with really big apples that are easy to color. So my point in that is that I'm not doing something childish, even though the task may seem so modified that it could be for a child. Does that make sense? So that is in the way we talk to them and the things that we do with them as well. Notice expressions of pain. So at this point, our loved ones are not going to be telling us how they feel, if they need to use the bathroom, if they've got a sore on their bottom, if their arthritis is flaring up, they probably cannot ask for their ibuprofen. And so we have to be sensitive to their signs, their nonverbal signs that help us understand that. And help them feel safe and happy. This is very easy to do in these later stages, and making them feel good. I had so much joy with my folks who were in these late stages, and Nona was living in this last stage for 6 or 7 years and doing very simple things like putting my cheek up to her mouth, and she couldn't tell me she wanted to kiss me, but she would just go. So little things like that, giving warm, big hugs. Maybe it's a blanket, maybe it's a pet. These simple pleasures, again, are great ways to help in the last stage. And I'm going to fly through these last few slides, so thank you for bearing with me. It is 1 o'clock, but I still would like to spend 10 minutes if that's okay. Okay, and if you need to leave, I understand. So as the care partner, you are the lead in maintaining your loved one's dignity and promoting and helping others. So share what you've learned. about what works for your loved one. Share it with those other people that are a part of their care team, or just even spending a little bit of time with your loved one, and make note of the changes in your loved one so that you may modify your approach as time goes on. So that is your role. And these are just some words and phrases I'm throwing in there to avoid, because just personally I think they can strip someone of dignity a little bit, but diaper is one of them. Patient, in memory care communities, we always learn to call our residents residents and not patients, because they are a resident of that community. No, right? We don't want to argue. So instead of saying no, and it's going to be instinctual and it's going to be hard, but if you can find a way to turn it into a yes. Saying something like, there's nothing left in my mom anymore. It's not true. There is something left in your mom. There is something left in your dad, in your spouse, in your friend, in your loved one. And it could be as simple as them enjoying that Pomeranian sitting on their lap, and that simple pleasure. That is still something left for your loved one to enjoy. Using the word senile, I don't hear that a whole lot anymore, but it's not good. Don't do it. Bib. So they may get to the point in these late stages where they need a clothing protector because they are making a mess, and that is A-okay to make a mess, but using the word bib is referring to something that a child would use. Same with diaper. So is there an alternative? As far as diaper, it depends what it is. Is it depends? Can you just call it depends? For some folks in memory care, some did not want to put them on because they were still switching from, regular undergarments to these protective garments. And so I might just call it underwear or whatever they called it. Let's put your whatever word they would call it, underwear, undergarments, and put it on. So it just depends on the person and what they're familiar with. Using the word victim, right? Because they can live a long and healthy and good quality of life. And so I hate to think of these folks as victims. Facility, so my folks working here that are in memory care communities, did you ever learn not to say the F word? That's what that is. Facility is the F word in long-term care setting lingo, because it is a community. It is a home. So just changing those words, and suffer and demented. So referring to things as they are is helpful. And just this quote, cannot read it from there. Language shapes our behavior, and each word we use is imbued with multitudes of personal meaning. The right words spoken in the right way can bring us love, money, and respect, while the wrong words, or even the right words spoken in the wrong way, can lead a country to war. We must carefully orchestrate our speech if we want to achieve our goals and bring our dreams to fruition. I understand parts of that are a bit dramatic, but I'm bringing this back to the stigma that is in our society and how it is up to each of us to talk about these things in a way that can help decrease that stigma. And it might be slow. It may just be a ripple in the lake, but every little bit helps. And the words that we use are a big part of that. So I love that. And that's a video that's not going to play. The Alzheimer's Association, I have a bunch of slides about us, but you know what? We are here to talk with you. After Kathy and I will be here for a little bit, but we are here to help. We have a 3-part mission, and one is to put us all out of a job because we want to see a world without Alzheimer's. 2 is to enhance care and support for those affected. And 3 is to reduce the risk of dementia through promoting brain health. If you would like to talk with us more, we are here. There's a few ways to learn more. I've put some flyers on the upcoming Alzheimer's Education Seminar and the Walk to End Alzheimer's. If you have not been a part of it, that is a great way to share your love, to share your respect for those affected by this disease, and to come together with your community for one cause. So it's a pretty amazing event. October 27th is the walk in Fort Worth. If you live in other areas, there's Arlington, Northeast Tarrant County, Weatherford, and even more. So there's all the information you need. And if you haven't registered for TIPA Snow, register for TIPA Snow and come back here on September 7th. And I apologize that I have gone over time, but you can write it all down on these surveys and let me know how this was for you. Thank you. Yeah, I can put it back to the last stages.
Wow, awesome.
This
Isn't
was,
she great? Thank you, Melissa.
thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Woo.
If you need help to register, Gail is back here. She'll help you do that if you need assistance to get registered for TIPA. And we're doing this again at 5:30, so if you have family or friends that you would like to encourage to come, Melissa will be back sharing this same information. So thank you very much.